Hello everyone, it's Bethany from Beth and Books. Welcome back to our little book nook here on BookTube. Man, that's a real alliteration mouthful, isn't it? I'm super excited to be bringing to you guys the very first book wrap-up video that I've ever done. If you haven't seen my previous Wheel Chooses My TBR, maybe go give that a watch, because a lot of the books that I'll be talking about here, I explain the basic plot of it over in that video. And it's been about a month since I recorded that video, and if you remember, I said I'm not going to restrict myself to monthly wrap-ups. I'm just going to talk when I finish my 10 books. And as it so happens, some of the books I had put on hold came through during the last few weeks, so I read a bit more than the 10 I spanned for, and I didn't read all 10 that I spanned for. And those ones I'll talk about in my next Wheel Chooses My TBR, which will be up after this video. So the first book that I read in the year 2020 was Demon Slayer. And this is written by Koyoharu Gotouge. Sorry, I totally butchered that. And I gave this 4 stars. I really loved it. I just feel like, I think it's a personal thing, I feel like it's cheating giving graphic novels 5 stars, and this is something I personally have to come over, because there's just that little part of me, maybe it's my BA major, that's like graphic novels are kind of cheating, which is totally 110% and not the case. But graphic novels obviously aren't cheating, it's just I gave this one 4 stars because I'm still getting over some obstacle, some preconceived notion that I have in my head. I'm working on it though. The second book I read is Red Dragon, written by Thomas Harris, and this is book 1 in the Hannibal Lecter series. In this first book, it was super interesting to me because Hannibal Lecter isn't a main character, he's a secondary character that our investigator Will Graham actually has already put in jail, so we don't know his story yet, as current pop references to Hannibal Lecter are so concentrated everywhere. We already know he was Hannibal the Cannibal, so we know he's got that twisted mentality side. So Graham's already put him in jail, and he talks to him to help him on this other case to find the Tooth Fairy, this absolute creep who goes around and likes to kill people and bite them. It's really twisted. I gave this book, have I mentioned, 5 stars because I really loved the writing style. It did take me a little bit of a while to get into his writing style, but I did ultimately love it. I thought the mystery part of it was really, really well written, and I'm definitely going to read book 2. Book 3 and 4 are the Tokyo Ghoul manga collection, volumes 1 and 2. This one is kind of like a vampire story, but it's got a bit of a twist in the fact that our main character, this boy, is bitten by a ghoul when he is being attacked by one. He obviously survives and he becomes half human, half ghoul. So far in the series, I've only really dipped my toes into it, so not heaps and heaps has happened. However, I really love the character building, really love how the main character's morality is portrayed. Does he eat people, but he's still human, so he doesn't want to eat his own kind. So 4 stars for both of those volumes. Book 5 is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. I gave this one 5 stars. I really thought it was super, super original, and my favourite part, hands down, is how the photographs, real photographs by the way, if you've ever seen them, I'll see if I can find some pictures, are included in the story, and it just makes it so magic could really be happening in our own backyard, and it was just a super fun read. Our main character, I think, is quite realistic. He becomes shunned by society because he can see things, and then people think that's weird, and then after his grandfather's death, it's this whole thing, and he's essentially on a quest to find out his grandfather's truth, and it just takes you on a really atmospheric, mysterious and magical adventure that I thoroughly enjoyed. Book number 6 is Seanan Maguire's Every Heart a Doorway, book 1 in the Wayward Children series. I gave this one a 4 stars. So if you don't know, in this world you have little doorways that children can walk through, and essentially the universe that they come into is their perfect universe. So for us book lovers, it would probably be some sort of ancient library where we just spend all of our time reading or something like that. But then all these children have come back, and they're on the other side of that doorway, back in real Earth, and kind of similar to Peculiar Children, they're shunned because they're different, and they have to kind of find recluse at Miss Peregrine's home. Kind of think like X-Men, but magic, X-Men are magical. think X-Men, but like less disastrous, more they don't have powers, they've just seen things, and so they have these like little quirks. Are they powers? One guy can like speak to bones. What stopped me from giving a full 5 stars is that I thought that at times the plot itself seemed to suffer from the shortness of the book. I've totally lost count at this point. The next book I read was Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan, and I gave this 4 stars. I did see the movie before reading the book, so I had a fair idea of what happened, and I have to say they are both quite very similar, so good job to the movie makers. I think you did good by the book. And I gave it 4 stars because I thought it was hilarious, so funny, quite topical, but a bit too long. I really wanted the massive juicy drama. If you've read it or like watched the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. I wanted that sooner. A bit too long for me, but still a great book nonetheless. I then read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen because it was my classic, and I was so surprised to fall in love with this book as much as I did. I always found classics so hard to get into. Again, I think because of my BA degree, it was one of those things I had to read, and if I'm told to read something, often I kind of just wall myself away from it, from enjoying it, which is stupid considering I was in it because I love books, but that's how it is, I suppose. But anyway, Austen's writing was so, again, humorous and so funny and ironic. My favourite character is definitely our main character. She's this woman who doesn't care how she's meant to act. She doesn't care who she's meant to be in whoever's house. If they're rich, if they're poor, she is just true to herself, and it is amazing watching her find her own feet and fit in, and her intelligent little monologues just had me hooked the whole time. I also think the father was a really hilarious character in how he's obviously at one point he calls his wife one of his daughters because she's quite, well, immature and gossipy, if I may be frank. And so it's just real cool commentary from Austen's behalf. And I think it definitely deserves the title of the first romantic comedy book in history. I gave it 4 stars. I dropped a star just simply because, like, in the middle of the book, the pace slowed down a bit, and that paired with it is an older writer style had me feeling a little bit not wanting to read it. Next, I read Angie Thomas's On the Come Up. This follows Brie, who wants to be a rapper, but at high school she has to deal with her grades, and at home she has to deal with, sadly, her father's death and her mother's coping with that. What was really interesting about this book is it actually follows Angie Thomas's first book, The Hate You Give, and in The Hate You Give, I suppose this is a bit of a spoiler, I'll try to keep it spoiler free. Stuff happens in The Hate You Give towards the end of the book which directly affects the community, and part of the effect on the community is that Brie's mum, who's from On the Come Up, loses her job, which definitely doesn't help with the financial situation. So it's watching Brie battle with passions but real life as well, following in her father's footsteps. And I thought it was, again, just like Angie Thomas's other book, really insightful, really important, and the messages have definitely got me thinking, especially about what I would do in Brie's mum's position. The reason I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, you're probably wondering, get to the point, is because there's a little relationship, love triangle in the story between Brie and a couple of other boys, and I thought it wasn't needed. My next read was Celeste Ng's Little Fires Everywhere. This follows our 2 main characters, the mother and the daughter duo of Mia and Pearl, along with the Richardson family, and it follows like a suburban drama. It's a lot more intricate than I was expecting, a lot more different side stories and secondary characters being built up than I expected. And about halfway through I was wondering if all the little side stories were actually going to be done well. And they were. I think Ing did a really good job. She touches on topics like abortion, adoption is the main focus around it, especially about interracial adoption. For example, one white family is adopting a Chinese baby, and it's that conversation around how are you going to uphold her Asian culture if you yourself don't know anything about it, which was the case. The reason I gave it 4 stars is just simply my own taste in reading. This isn't something I normally read, and so at times I found myself zoning out a little bit. But all in all, 4 stars is a good rating, and I do recommend it, especially if you're into adult contemporary with hard-hitting subjects. Sorry if it feels like I'm rushing through these. Got a lot to get through. Right, next. The Wicked King, which is The Folk in the Air, Book 2 by Holly Black, and I gave this one 3 stars. Now, if you watch my reading vlog, you will have heard me talk a lot about my issues with The Wicked King. No, The Cruel Prince, which is the first book in the series. I didn't like the first book in the series, and I think this one got better. Like, 3 stars isn't bad, it's just not great either. My main issues are simply, I find the plot somewhat boring. I don't feel like lots and lots of things happen, and sometimes I feel like I've read this story before. So if you like really traditional fairy tale stories, this might be the one for you, especially about humans being in fairy worlds. I then read The Grace Year by Kim Liggett, and this was my first and only 5-star read, I think, so far. Oh, hello cicadas. This is a feminist story that does not shove it down your throat. It was my favourite book of like January, which if you saw my January faves, you would have seen that. It's kind of like The Hunger Games meets The Lord of the Flies is how I described it. You have all these 16-year-olds in this village have to go and survive for a year by themselves out in the wilderness, and essentially the best way to survive is women supporting women, girls supporting girls, and it just explores that concept. And I kind of wish this book came out 10 or 20 years ago, so more generations would feel how important it is to support each other. I just really loved this book. I could talk about it forever, so I'll move on. The next book I read was City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare, the Multiple Instruments, book number 2. Yes, I only just finished book number 2. I gave it 3 stars. Is that what I gave it? Yeah. I went in remembering that I really liked book number 2, and I read that 4 years ago, so when I was about 19, fresh out of high school. And then I've read book number 2 now at 23, and I don't like it as much. I don't know if that's to do with my tastes evolving, whether I've been noticing the plot more, become a bit more of a critical reviewer now that I've been talking about books more, but ultimately I found the plot pretty meh. And also, Clary really annoyed me. Like, she's had how long to start training because she's known that demons are an actual thing, and her father is low-key deadly. But what does she do? Pines after boys she can't have and eats lots of pizza. Also, Clary, Cassandra Clare. Is this a little bit like Bram Stoker naming the main hero in Dracula after himself? You know, Abraham, and Bram's real name is Abraham. Just a thought. Then we come to my first DNF, All the Crooked Saints by Maggie Stayvada. This was a shocker for me. I absolutely loved The Raven Boys. Is this cicada annoying? Let me shut the window. I absolutely loved The Raven Boys. That is her, right? Yeah. And that like Shiver series, I read those a while ago, and I absolutely loved them. So I thought going into this, I would love this too. However, the writing style stopped me in my tracks, and this is such a personal preference, and I don't think the writing style is bad. It was just too poetic for me. I think that I read up to page 53, and it was a whole lot of words to describe a whole lot of nothing. Like, it was so poetic that I found it hard to actually figure out what was going on. Maybe that's just my brain, but you know, it's still a valid reason for me, and I kept trying to push through it. And then what I came across is that there were lots of swapping and changing perspectives. Like, this book follows 3 cousins, and you kind of follow each one of them, as well as then another person comes in, like this nomadic figure, and the chapters and the pages swap way too fast between each of these characters, paired with the really poetic, beautiful, eerie writing, that I didn't feel like I got to know any of them. And I'm a very character-driven reader, so when I didn't get to know any of them, and then I think there was like a couple of days where I didn't even pick it up, so I wasn't reading anything, I was like, you know what? Let's apply my 2020 reading goals and DNF a book if I don't want to read it. Otherwise, your girl just gets in a slump. So I did rate this. I don't know how you guys feel about rating DNFs, but I give them what I think I would rate them if I finished. Might be controversial, but too bad. This is my reading, so I give it 2 stars. And then this is one that I had on hold for ages at the library, and it came through. Actually, do I have it here? I have it here. Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is my second 5-star rating of the year. I loved it so much, and I need the next book in the series right now. It reminded me so much of Stieg Larsson's writing and how he, if you're familiar with the series, one of the main characters is Lisbeth Salander, and she's this mysterious, badass woman. So is the main character in here, called Galaxy Stern. She goes by Alex. So Lisbeth has like the same vibe as Alex, and then Lisbeth is real mysterious, and Stieg Larsson like feeds you little seeds of info about her history. Leigh Bardugo does the same for Alex. There is an actual mystery encapsulated within the book itself. The pacing was great. There were magical elements. There was like this love sexual tension, and it was on point. And hang on, I need to check right now. Is she releasing a second? Oh, she's releasing a second book. When? It's untitled, so not for a while. I want to read that, please. Add to series I need to finish. I'm pretty sure lots of people have heard about this book so far, so I'm going to move on. So my first 15, what did I say? My first 16 books I read in 4 weeks, and then I read 1 book in 1 week. I'm not hating myself. It's better than nothing. I've been at work again, so work's picked up at this point, and that is Virginia Woolf's essay called A Room of One's Own. The reason I put myself, oh, that makes it sound so bad. The reason I read this, I will explain further in my next video, where I show you the books that I unhaul from the library. But ultimately, I gave this book 3 stars. It's not even a book, this essay, 3 stars. And I feel bad giving it 3 stars because I feel like I learned so much. It's this discussion that Woolf has around how male and women writers are different. Again, it's like a feminist essay. Also not shoving it down your throat. So if you liked The Grey Seer or some sort of feminine text and you want to read an essay kind of around that, highly recommend this one. I found Woolf's writing funny and witty. The issue I had with it is, again, simply personal preference. It's an essay. I don't really like reading them. It is a 100-page essay, so I got to about page 70, had enough, skim read. I will admit I flipped a few pages without actually reading the pages, and then read the last few pages to feel like I'd actually finished it. So although not my favourite thing in the world, if you like essays and you're really into feminism and just looking at historical figures, especially historical authors, so recommend it. I think you would love it. I'm getting sweaty. It must be time to wrap up. So if you have the time and energy, please consider leaving a cheeky like and subscribe down below to keep up to date. My next video will be another Wheel Chooses My TBR because I'm going to the library tomorrow. So I'm super excited, as well as telling you all about the books I didn't read. I will see you all in my next video. Thank you and bye.